Welcome back to Nonsense Password. This one, a special episode. A major event that just occurred. Reminded me of one of my fondest memories. And I remembered it very well, very vividly. So much so, I ended up telling somebody the story, and they were really fascinated by it. So I was like, hell, I'll just make that an episode. So, here it goes. My little trip down memory lane. I call it Hoisting the Super Bowl Trophy. When I was a lad, and I mean even from being a little lad, I was what you might call a media prodigy. I was very interested in filmmaking. I wrote books. I made comic books. I did all sorts of things. And I was really talented when it comes to broadcasting. I was always kind of obsessed with the media as a kid. And after a while, when I was 14, 15 years old, I started doing the PA at games. And at first I was just doing it for free. They just asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, sure. And I was really good at it. I had things under control. And after a while, they did this strange thing where they started paying me. And I was nervous about it at first because I'm like, well, if you're paying me, you can fire me. And I just want to do this for fun. It's just just something I do. It's no big deal. I like the idea that every night, every time there was a game, especially a football game, that whatever I said would echo over my entire town. And I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was really, really good stuff. But they started paying me, and it wasn't a whole lot. But if I had, like, 3 games a week, which I often did, I would, double, triple, quadruple my allowance at the time. And so it was nice. Making a profit there was nice. So I went through this for a little while. And then there was this advertisement that ended up towards me. It was actually a brochure that somehow got into my hands from somewhere. And it was for a broadcasting academy led by the voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. And this was like 1997, 1996, 1997, something like that. I was like 15, 16 years old. And my parents paid the $600 to get rid of me for a couple of weeks. And I went up there, and it was at Kansas State University, which is the first time I spent that kind of time on a college campus. And it was really the first time I spent that amount of time away from home. And it was interesting. It was fun. And even though I was the youngest person in this academy by far, the next year I went back and I brought a friend of mine who was only a couple of years older than me. But I'm the only teenager there. And then most people in there were either already broadcasters or people who worked in other parts of the media and wanted to brush up on broadcasting. And there was one other guy who was close to me in age, who was only 6 or 7 years older than me. And he had an Italian name. And he was the son of a dean of a junior college. And so, he seemed like connected, and he kind of had like an Italian name. And so we called him the Godfather. So, because the Godfather was closest to me in age, we got up to the most shit together. There was a very strange person from way out in the middle of nowhere who was in this academy and nobody knew why, who was a little bit older than the Godfather, who was the next in age. And this total group is probably 15, 16 people. And we all hung out in the dorms, and we all went to these, classes for this academy in this one little place. And we also traveled out, and we went to other places too. Now, this being my first time away from home, for this amount of time, naturally shit got out of control. in Manhattan, home of the Kansas State Wildcats, there's this place called Aggieville. And even though it was kind of quiet at the time, we would, get drunk, wander around Aggieville at night, party, do whatever. It was me and the Godfather and all these older guys. And because I was just like, go, 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 and I was so excited, I did not get to sleep for several days. I did not sleep the first night. I did not sleep the second night. I did not sleep the third night. And things were getting a little out of control. And while my pure virginal body had never experienced coffee before, by the end of this academy, it was very well attuned to the juice of the bean, if you will. I remember, too, on about the third night into this, I was killing it in the academy, even though I was living entirely on alcohol, which was new to me, and coffee, which was also new to me. I was killing it. And we were having a lot of fun at night. And after a few nights of just rowdy behavior, a lot of the older guys just started hitting the dorms a little early and sleeping, or we'd go onto the bottom floor and we'd hang out on these terraced floors and watch TVs for a little bit. But I remember one night we were playing a poker game. And me and the Godfather and a couple of other people, and that guy I mentioned earlier, who was closer in age to the Godfather, who was just a few years older than him, was playing with us too, and he was a very odd guy. He talked in a really weird way. He kind of talked like this. And I want to say his name is Herman. Skinny guy. And I remember Herman that night got really, really drunk. And we were playing poker late into the night, just with change. And, which was a lot of money to me because I didn't have any money because I was a little kid. Right? And we were going at it for a little bit, and everybody started telling sex stories. And Herman got really upset because he was talking about his girlfriend, and he was saying how much he just really wants to suck on a tit. And that he knew this girl forever, he was dating this girl forever, and he really wanted to suck on her tits. Because they were meaty, and they looked good, but when he finally got to suck on her tits, he discovered that she has no nipples. And he felt strange about it, but he wasn't really sure whether or not women could have nipples. And we confirmed it for him. We were like, Herman, dude, yeah, women have nipples. That's, pasties, that's what they're covering up the nipples. The nipples are like, a really good part of the titty there to suck on. It's kind of what's going on. And then he got really upset. He got really emotional. He started crying, and he was dejected. So for some reason, me and the Godfather and somebody else left for a little while. And when we came back, Herman was gone. He had left, and he had taken all the change with him. So we were like, oh shit, Herman is in a very bad emotional state. We gotta find him. So we're running around the dorms looking for him. Not sure if he's left yet. And we were looking everywhere. We were going to all these different floors that we thought he might be. And there were all these girls actually on the floor above us, and we were worried that he was going to go try to give them change or something, or jump off the roof or something. We didn't know. So we were looking around, and me and the Godfather were like, where the fuck could he be? And we got back in the elevator because we were going to go down to the ground floor and start looking for him outside. But we were going down, and just on the other side of the elevator, just as we were passing, we heard Herman say, we heard a bunch of change drop, like a bunch of change dropped against the elevator door on the other side. And then Herman go, oh shit! And then so we stopped the elevator and we got up and we found him and we tackled him. And, we took care of him. It was kind of an ordeal. And then the next day, we got up because we've been working on play-by-play. Actually, Mitch he was teaching us the finer points of play-by-play because he's a great play-by-play man. If you've never heard Mitch call a Chiefs game, he is wonderful. He is top-notch. Really, really great guy. And he had us just sort of like doing play-by-play for things that we could, and just sort of like getting our minds tuned to doing this sort of thing, which is kind of an interesting thing to do. If you've never done play-by-play, yourself, you should do it. You should just call play-by-play on things that happen around you. And after a while, you go past this wall, and then everything becomes brilliant and easy and beautiful and very well clarified and very easy to describe. And it's really sort of like a Zen state of being. And we were going up to do this at a baseball game at Washburn University, a famous university for lawyers, right? And as we were heading up there, this really interesting thing was going on, something that I wasn't really aware of beforehand. But Fred Phelps in the Westboro Baptist Church was protesting Washburn because of something being friendly to gays. And this was before they were such a national phenomenon. They wouldn't be known nationally for a few more years at this point for being the terrible, crazy people that they are. But I ran into the protest. Our van stopped, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm looking at these protesters. And I'm like, what are they doing? And I looked at their signs, and it was all God hates fags. And it was all these stick figures doing all these crazy things. And I was like, I was pretty young, but I was like, protests don't get weirder than this, do they? And I'm just like looking at it. And it was very educational for me. Because I knew about gay guys. I knew a gay guy or two, but I'm from out in the sticks. It wasn't very normal to know anything real about gays. There's lots of gay bashing going on and everything. And I thought mostly that homosexuality was just like this weird thing that really, didn't have a function. They were just sort of like, holding hands or whatever. But I couldn't picture exactly how two men could have sex. Like, it didn't make sense to me, right? Until I saw these stick figures. So this really strange thing happened to me where Fred Phelps, this anti-gay icon, this psycho, overzealous protester of homosexuality, for a while taught me everything I know about gay sex and how it even happens. I had no idea. No clue. Very eye-opening experience. And then we went to the game, and when I was at the game, I was a changed man. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It was a paradigm shift for me. But I still went through and I did the play-by-play, and the whole time I'm doing the play-by-play, I'm killing it, while at the same time thinking about this entire new perspective I have to homosexuality. So that went great. Everything was going great. I was so young at this academy, but I was killing hard. Because, I don't know, there's just something about me in environments like that. I just really tune in, and I kill it, and it's what I'm into. I'm a big game pitcher, is what I am. That's how I always thought about myself. I'm not good at the everyday. I'm easily hurt in the everyday. But in the bigger moments, I always shine, because I focus, probably for the first time. Otherwise, I'm just in a constant daze. And even though I'd been up for 3 consecutive days, and then 4 consecutive days, and then 5 consecutive days, living entirely on alcohol and coffee, I was doing quite well. About the 4th day, though, I started to hallucinate. Right? Just little things, little patterns and things, little figures. Because I hadn't slept in several days. And I couldn't sleep. I wasn't even tired. I did feel this strange sponginess to my body. Like I was some sort of a zombie, and that I was sort of like this moist sponge that was animated. However, I was not tired at all. I was not even interested in sleep. I just kept going. And about this time, about the 5th day, when the hallucinations really started to pick up, we, in this academy, were sort of heading towards the crown jewel of the travel portion of this academy, which was a trip up to Kansas City, to Arrowhead Stadium, to do all sorts of stuff. On the way there, to make sure that I would be sharp when we got there, I drank a giant cup of cappuccino. It was the first cappuccino that I ever got in my life. And I kept sipping it and sipping it. And by the time I got to Kansas City, or we got to Kansas City, it had been long since gone, for at least 30 minutes. and The Godfather had joined me in that. So we get to Arrowhead, and the first thing we do when we walk inside the offices at Arrowhead Stadium is I ask where the bathroom is, and they tell me it's in there. And The Godfather had to go too. Actually, a lot of the guys had to go, and they all went quick. And then I went, and I peed. And I took the longest pee in my entire life. And after everybody else left, I was still in there peeing. Just peeing and peeing and peeing. And the only person left with me was The Godfather, who was asking me to hurry up. And I kept saying, I'm trying my best. I'm just peeing and peeing and peeing, and it won't stop. My pee won't stop. It just kept going and going and going and going. And I was worried that when it was done, I was going to drop dead because I couldn't imagine how I could possibly hold this much liquid in my body that was now coming out of my penis in Arrowhead Stadium of all places. So I kept peeing and peeing and peeing and peeing. And after I was done, after I was finally done, go over, wash my hands, The Godfather's like, Jesus, man, Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then the strange thing happened. When we walked outside the bathroom, our entire group was gone. They got tired of waiting for me, or they forgot that me and The Godfather exist, and they just left without us. So we had no idea where to go. And there was nobody else there. So The Godfather was panicking immediately. He was a little overwhelmed about being abandoned inside Arrowhead, and he thought we were definitely in trouble. And I said, be cool, baby. We're not in trouble. We're just kids. But I had no idea where they were either. But right next to us, there was an elevator. So I was like, they probably just got on the elevator and went somewhere. When we get on the elevator, everything's going to make sense. So I hit the button. And we walked inside. And I looked at the list. And I can't remember what the other ones were. But I remember seeing on the top floor, it said, Lamar Hunt Suite. Now, Lamar Hunt was a god to me. Is a god to me. Amazing, amazing guy. One of the founders of the American Football League. The original owner of the Kansas City Chiefs was the original owner all the way through. The Hunt family still owns the Chiefs, right? And I was like, oh yeah, Lamar Hunt Suite. That's got to be the place where it is, right? So I just hit the button for the Lamar Hunt Suite, and The Godfather immediately panicked. He's like, we can't go up there. I said, of course we can. We're a couple of kids lost in Arrowhead. We can go up, you know. Lamar's a good guy. Lamar's a kick-ass dude. Let's go on up there. So we get up there. The elevator doors open, and I walk out immediately like I own the place. Because, you know, I'm delirious and kind of an asshole. And The Godfather takes a few sheepish steps out and just hangs out near the door of the elevator. So, when I step out, I turn to my left. And I remember seeing a sight that I will never forget. It was Neil Smith. Neil Smith was there. And he's wearing a giant feather boa and sunglasses. And I couldn't believe it. Neil Smith is an amazing athlete. He's one of my favorite Chiefs. He's a defensive lineman. And him and Derek Thomas used to really harass people constantly. He was amazing. And he was one of those guys that would always jump into the neutral zone all the time to try to draw false starts on the offense. And when they cut that out, what he started doing was this move called the flinch, where he would time it out, and then every once in a while he would tense every muscle in his body, and it looked like he was taking off, but he wasn't actually moving. It was still legal, and he'd get people to jump all the time. The guy was a genius. Loved him. Never expected to see him. Never expected to see him in a feather boa. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I think we're both thinking, what the fuck is going on? But I didn't say anything to him, and he just walked on by, and he left. And I was like, wow. And then I turn around, and it's Art Shell. Art fucking Shell. Art Shell at this point was a mortal enemy, right? He was the coach of the Raiders forever. I didn't expect to see him. When I saw him, I was like, what the fuck? And I assumed that we would fight, right? But I didn't know what Art Shell's strategy would be, so I was waiting for him to make the first move. We were looking at each other eye to eye, studying each other, He'd been the offensive line coach for the Chiefs for a few years, but I didn't trust him. In fact, I might have said something to him like, "What's up, Judas?" Because I took him for a spy. And he ended up coaching the Raiders again later. We looked each other up and down. Art Shell is much bigger than me. He probably would have stomped me, but I would have fought him. No problem. And Lamar Hunt sweet? Hell yes. But he just walked on by and he left. And when he did, I remember feeling a sense of shame. What was I going to tell my family? What was I going to tell my friends? I saw Art Shell eye to eye, and I didn't kick his ass. So I never mentioned it. And that's when it happened. It was right there. I went from this feeling of shame to this feeling of wonder, seeing this magical object just sitting right there, just out on the open, just on the top of this table, just this little table, just this simple decoration, but also the focal point of the room if you're looking the same way that Art Shell left. And I approached it, not even knowing that I was approaching it. It's like I had a guardian angel and it was pushing me gently by the shoulders as I shuffled my feet towards it. I saw it. Right there was the Super Bowl trophy the Chiefs had won in Super Bowl IV. The Chiefs had went to the first Super Bowl, lost to the Green Bay Packers, won Super Bowl IV against the Minnesota Vikings. And I saw it right there. It was just sitting right there, right out in the open. And so, with no control of my body, I just mechanically walked over, shuffled my feet. And then, the next thing I know, the Godfather is yelling, "What the fuck are you doing? Put it down!" Because I picked up the trophy. It was in my hands. I was looking at it. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, this is amazing. And in that moment, I felt a feeling that I've only felt a few times in my life. A few remarkable times. Like, I was encapsulated by glory. And my focus was pure and true. And nothing at that moment could have made it any better. Except for maybe if I'd won it myself. I was shocked at how light it was. And I was shocked that it seemed to be, mostly a facade. It didn't go all the way around. It was amazing. I was like, oh my God. And then I told the Godfather, "Do you know what this is?" And he said, "Yes, put it down." And then I was like, wow. And then next thing I know, Mitch pops out of Lamar's office, sees me, and he says, "Put that down. What are you doing? Come here. We're looking for you guys all over the place." And so we get in the elevator, and Mitch is kind of pissed. And I'm like, "I'm sorry, Mitch. I peed a really long time. The Godfather was a witness to it. I couldn't stop peeing." And the Godfather was like, "Yeah, it was a really long pee. And when we came out, you guys weren't there." And he was like, "All right, I guess." So me and the Godfather were in the elevator with Mitch, and he took us down to the locker room. And I'd been in many locker rooms in my life, but this was the first time I was in a locker room, and I thought, this is much better than my house. This is very comfortable. This is very nice. And all the rest of the guys were down there, and they were talking to us. And I was just sort of looking around. And I noticed right next to me was Derek Thomas's locker. I love Derek Thomas. One of my favorite players ever. It's amazing. And I looked there, and he had some pictures, some old pictures of family. And he had shoes. He had so many shoes. A ludicrous amount of shoes. I don't know anybody who had as many shoes in their life as Derek Thomas had in his locker. And I was looking around a little bit more, and I turned around, and in walks Tony Gonzalez, who had not yet even played a game for the Chiefs. He was a rookie. Mitch was glad to see him, talked him up a lot. I wasn't even really sure who he was at that point, but he ended up being one of my favorite players too. He's amazing. Tony Gonzalez totally revolutionized the position of tight end. Legit Hall of Famer. Absolutely great. Wonderful, wonderful day. And then after we were in the locker room for a while, Mitch took us to one of the rooms where one of the teams broke down tape. I think it was where the special teams broke down tape, and they would have special teams meetings. It was like a mini theater. It had like these theater seats, and we were sitting in the theater seats where they were going to talk to us, and we were going to do other activities through the day. So we were in there, and I was sitting, and I was trying to behave myself. And the next thing I know, Rich Gannon walks in. Rich Gannon's kind of a hero of mine. He was just a backup behind Elvis Gerbach for the Chiefs. And then he had some really great years for the Raiders, and I thought he was a really underrated guy. He's very smart, very football smart. But I was shocked to find that he's smaller than me. And I'm not that big of a guy. Just amazing. He just came in and he said hi. And then he walked back outside. And I was hallucinating a little bit, but I was conscious of it. The sleep deprivation was really doing weird things to my mind. And then something even weirder happened. Marty Schottenheimer walked into the room. Marty fucking Schottenheimer. And he came in there just to talk to us for a few minutes. And when he showed up, it freaked me out. Because forever I wondered how exactly Marty can keep these guys under control. These really big personalities, these really big fellas. And it's because Marty Schottenheimer is a frighteningly huge human being. He had these giant fucking forearms. I couldn't believe it. He was up there and he was talking to us. And when he was talking to us, I kept hallucinating. Somebody kept running in and out of the room. So Marty's up there talking to us about, life and how to approach it. And he told us a story about a game that he played with his son, Super Tecmo Bowl, which I love that game. And he learned to never take points off the board from this video game. And, he's right. He's right, probably. Because if you take points off the board because of a call, and then you don't get points after that, it's a tragedy. It's terrible. But while he's saying this, I keep whipping my head. Because it keeps looking like somebody's running in and out of the room. And I keep doing it. And after a while, this distracts Marty Schottenheimer. And I can tell he's growing more and more aggravated with me. But there was a little doubt in my mind whether or not what I was seeing was actually a hallucination, or we are in some sort of danger by a menacing person who keeps running in and out of the room. And I keep looking over. And I keep looking over. And the next thing I know, Marty Schottenheimer's big giant forearms are pointing right at me, and he's yelling at me for being an asshole. I guess he was right to do it. And honestly, I was pretty happy with it. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, Marty Schottenheimer is yelling at me. This is fucking great. But after that, everything else went well. I did a stand-up interview with the defensive lineman for the Chiefs. I think he was formerly a defensive lineman. At that point, his name was Joe Phillips. He's a truly enormous human being. I was freaked out the entire time I was near him, and I wondered, are we the same species? He's very, very large. And his index finger was the size of my fist, of my entire fist. And I know that I was just a boy at that time, but I was still a teenager. And, I was almost a man. And he was just huge. He was just so huge. It was amazing. After we got back to Manhattan, we did a few things. We did some mock TV shows and stuff like that. And I ended up winning Best of the Academy. And that was a pretty big deal. And the last night, I forced myself to go to sleep. Because I knew when I woke up and my dad was going to come and get me in Manhattan, we were going to go up to Kansas City to watch Cal Ripken as he tied Sachio Kinagasa's international record for consecutive games played. And we did that. I did get like 2 hours of sleep, and I felt strangely refreshed and less spongy. And I remember it all so vividly, which is strange because, I was sleep deprived and I was hallucinating. But that's my story. That's my story of holding the Chiefs' first Super Bowl trophy in my hands, back when it had only been about 30 years since they won a Super Bowl. And they just won Super Bowl 54. Their first trophy in 50 years. But I really hadn't had a chance to enjoy it because I really haven't watched too much football lately. But the historic event of the Chiefs' Super Bowl victory reminded me of this story, which is strange that I needed to be reminded of it because, honestly, between hoisting the trophy myself and Lamar Hunt's suite and getting yelled at by Marty Schottenheimer, it was one of the greatest days of my life. That's the trip. Thanks for taking it with me. If you need to reach me, you can reach me on Twitter at NonsensePassPod. The website is nonsensepassword.com. Been updating it a lot lately. There's a Teespring store. There's a Redbubble store. There's all sorts of things. And of course, keep coming back here as I'll keep releasing new things. Thanks again.